Yes, I know I haven't been around for a while, but this whole COVID thing is, business is up and mail-ins are through the roof. So, just trying to keep up. But everyone always asks me what I listen to because they always see me with my headphones on. So it's normally podcasts. I love podcasts. And it's normally true podcasts. I'm not big on fiction. So this is one of my favorite podcasts at the moment, and you'll get a glimpse into what it's like to be me. So enjoy. Good luck.
So this would be probably July of 2001. My girlfriend was still in college. She was still attending LSU and still lived very near the campus. We'd been together since early 2000, probably a little over a year and a half, yeah. I'm at home having just gotten off of work, and my roommate is there with me. Some Kevin Costner movie had just come out on VHS, and Blockbuster was still the thing, and so we were going to do that evening, and then probably about 7 p.m., maybe 7:30, it's just starting to get a little darker, and my girlfriend gives me a call. She lights me up and says, "Hey, I left Walmart, and ever since I've noticed there's a white pickup truck following me." Everybody has their moments, but she was a fairly rational woman. Somebody, when you're in a relationship that long, you kind of know somebody enough to know, all right, well, this isn't a typical reaction. This isn't like, hey, there's something a little weird. The tone in her voice is changing with every turn and every step of the way. She's like, "Baby, I'm really scared." Ultimately, I didn't want to keep her on the phone. I wanted her to focus on the vehicle, and my hope was that somewhere along the way, she's like, "Oh, you know what? He just turned off. All right, never mind." She thought if I turn enough, this situation's going to resolve itself. The dude's going to hang a left, I'm going to hang a right, or something like that. He'll pull over at a house, or maybe he'll realize he thought he was following a friend or something and just realize, oh, I'm following the wrong car. She was taking the direct path home, which is winding. As she took those turns, every step of the way, she's like, "No, he's still with me. No, he's still with me." And you could hear it in her voice as it's building. It's occurring to her, this might be something more than just coincidence. She was a pretty tough individual. She wasn't easily intimidated. She was a very tall woman. For her to break down about somebody following her, for her to start crying, was for me to take it seriously enough to say, we've got to get out the door and do something. Once we had figured out, all right, somebody is following her, at that point we hustled on across town to try and intervene, interact, help any way we could. My roommate and I worked together at the time, and every now and then if he slept in, he would just put the pedal to the metal. He would just fly across town. And he was like, "She's in trouble. Dude, let's go, pedal to the metal." We made probably what would normally be about a 30-minute drive in a little under 10 minutes. Yeah, he was a beast behind the wheel. We're on the phone with her. "Hey, we're at the Governor's Mansion curve. Hey, we're exiting on Dalrymple right now." And at that point, she's like, "Okay, I'm heading toward the house. Is he still behind you?" "Yeah, he's still behind you." We kind of coordinated it over the phone. It's like, "All right, where are you? We're here." We got to the end of the street just in time to see her turn and to see the white pickup truck make the turn behind her. At that point, I'm expecting the truck's just going to keep on going. As we're following in line behind, we're the third vehicle in this little caravan. We see her car as we're approaching the street. She makes the turn. We're on the phone with her. "Okay, we see you. Yeah, it's still behind you. Go ahead and pull into your aunt's house." 2 houses away, the white pickup truck pulls in on the lake side of the street and comes to a stop. I didn't know what was going on. I pulled in behind her, and she's in the driveway in tears. She's in tears, like, "Is that the truck?" and point to it. She's like, that's the truck. It was a workman's truck. It was a little beat up, which is kind of out of place on a street full of Lexuses. The truck is off, the lights are off. He's there and chilling, facing my girlfriend's house. My girlfriend was in the house, and I encouraged her, like, hey, it's okay. We're here. You're going to be fine. Nothing's going to happen to you. And I encourage her to go inside, lock the doors, stand by your phone, and if you hear anything go wrong, call the police. The way the lighting situation is on the lake at that time of day, it had gotten very dark. If you're not in the light from the street lights, you're pretty well concealed, and that's where we were. My roommate was on the lawn, kind of hidden in the shadows behind me. And so I just tell my roommate, hey, you kind of hang back, just kind of watch what happens here, and if anything goes wrong, jump in. And he's like, oh yeah, man, I got your back, I got your back. I'm just like, I gotta end this. And so I just marched to the end of the driveway, and where he could see me and I could see him, and made a line straight for him. Just kind of make myself seen at the end of the driveway, raise a hand, and start walking that way. It's after hours, so why is a workman's truck parked here on the lake? He's either following her, or he's either just a dude who needs to park and contemplate some stuff. Maybe he's having a rough day and needs to sit by the lake, or it's the worst case scenario. I'd be off on his left. I'm out the driver's window. I approach the vehicle and make eye contact with him. It's like, hey, dude. And he doesn't turn to me at all. He doesn't engage me at all. At this point, I can see the occupant, who's an African-American male. He's wearing a white-colored, like a t-shirt, like an undershirt. He's kind of sitting in kind of a rigid position to where he's not trying to turn his head to look at me. He's kind of following me side-eyed. He's trying to follow me out the corner of his eye, but keeping himself really kind of like in a rigid body posture. He ain't looking at me full on. He doesn't turn his body. He doesn't reposition himself. He doesn't roll the window down. But I just approached it and said, hey, man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this is. I don't know what you want. You're freaking her out. I don't know what this is, but you've got to go. You've got to leave right now. He doesn't engage me at all. He doesn't turn his head to look at me, kind of gives me a side-eyed look, pauses for maybe 5-10 seconds, and then cranks his truck and rolls out.
The man in the white truck, whoever he was, had followed his girlfriend for miles. And after driving all the way into her neighborhood, he parks and just sits there, watching. Even with the man directly outside his driver's side window, he doesn't move a muscle. A few moments pass, he starts his truck and peels out of there. Though he didn't know the man driving the white truck, he had a sneaking suspicion of who it might be.
From 2000 to 2003, it was pretty well known that there was a serial killer on the loose in Baton Rouge. The Baton Rouge serial killer, as he was called at that time. If you've ever seen like Zodiac, or I think it's Summer of Sam, the paranoia they try and portray in the cities, like, they don't underplay it, it's real. Every conversation about everything was the killer. Weird car at the end of the street, maybe it's the killer. Somebody broke a window at my job today, maybe it was the killer.
As more cases of missing women started popping up, police formed a task force. Their goal, to find the man who had spread so much fear across South Louisiana. So many ladies buying guns, tasers, pepper spray, and taking self-defense classes. A simple knock on the door put fear in people.
I believe one of the victims, they found her stuff with her groceries still on the counter. It's plausible she may have been followed from a supermarket. It was typically brunette women, and at the time my girlfriend she fit that profile in that she was in her early 20s and brunette. He was believed to be driving a white pickup truck or a white SUV.
Behind the scenes, the South Louisiana Serial Killer Task Force mobilized, hunting down every lead as women kept turning up murdered.
I don't see him again in person ever, but I did see him again about 18 months later when he was perp walked on the news.
This was the moment when a team of detectives realized they had matched DNA to South Louisiana serial killer Derek Todd Lee.
He was on the front page of every paper, every website, everything in the region. The face of the man I saw in the truck that night, Derek Todd Lee. On lunch break at my job, they've got a copy of The Advocate out on the table. I'm kind of glancing through the article and reading the details of it, and every now and then my eyes flick back to his face. I'm bad at names, I'm good at faces. If we run into each other on the street, it's probably going to click, hey, don't I know you? Did we meet at so-and-so? Help me with your name again? That's right. Names I'm not great at, faces I'm good at. In that moment in the break room, I get a little shaky, I get a little sweaty, like, man. The newsprint in front of me, and it's like I'm walking toward the truck that night, and I can see it. I'm standing next to him, looking at him pretty rigidly in profile. You see the profile picture right up there with the mugshot. That's the guy. That's the guy who didn't want to look at me. That's the guy from the truck. Derek Todd Lee was the gentleman's name. I'm just kind of stumped and stymied and shocked and kind of off balance all at once, just because it's, man, I'm getting shaky a little talking about it. You get kind of weak all at once and kind of overwhelmed all at once, because it's just like, it's a human being with no qualms about murder. What's to stop him from cutting through me? There's so many ways that an individual like that could kill you that it's staggering. Even though you're human, you're nothing to them. These are murderers. This is a killer. That could have gone bad in so many ways. One of the victims was abducted from their home, probably within maybe 5 miles of the home that my girlfriend lived in at the time. We never think that we're gonna cross paths with a monster that the whole city's watching for, looking out their windows for. What are the odds that I'm gonna run into this one person who's stalking people, who's hunting people? What are the odds that that's gonna be me? You don't know who the stranger on the other side of the glass is.